Hello and welcome to the special edition of the Empathic Designer podcast by Vailan. I am your host Vaidishwaran, reporting to you from San Diego, California. So I'm here for the ATD 23 conference, and going to talk to you about my experiences and reflections from the second day of the conference. So the second day started at 8 in the morning. So we were in for an absolute treat. So I went to the venue at 7:30. There was an amazing band playing 80s music. It was absolutely superb. Really set the mood up. So as you can see, there is an amazing crowd, and it was just superb. And they got the audience really supercharged ahead of the keynote for the day, which was by Adam Grant. Adam Grant's keynote, in a word, was amazing. It was absolutely top class. With a lot of ideas that were discussed that as a designer and as a person has so much potential to reflect upon and to really improve yourself. And with some of the key ideas that really resonated with me was the concept of givers and takers, and agreeable and disagreeable people. So we're talking about a spectrum of agreeable givers, disagreeable takers, and agreeable takers. So we're discussing about the importance of having a cohort of disagreeable givers in your network to really challenge you. So that Adam referred to them as your challenge network. It's so important to have people like that, so that they give you things to constantly think about and continuously improve yourself. So that was something that really resonated with me. And another line that really stuck with me was honesty is the best form of loyalty. So that was something that I felt was really powerful. And he also went on to talk more about the importance of thinking like a scientist, and what are some of the strategies that we can employ to think like a scientist and put ourselves under the microscope to make sure that we are in the right path, and we constantly judge ourselves in terms of what we're doing and how we're doing, and whether what we're doing is really what that needs to be done. There was so much gold in those 60 minutes. And one of the last things that I wanted to share about Adam Grant's presentation was he was talking about an incident in his life where he was a diver, and he was talking about how his coach was asking him. I mean, he was a little hesitant about heights, and his coach was asking him, "Are you going to do it? And if the answer is yes, what are you waiting for?" And I think that was one of the core ideas that led me to even come to this conference, because I really wanted to improve myself. I wanted to get to know more about what's happening in L&D. I wanted to meet new people, and of course score new clients. And if that's what I'm going to do, what am I waiting for? Am I scared of the 29-hour journey? Am I scared of visiting a new city, meeting new people? I mean, if that's what I've got to do, I've got to do it. What am I waiting for? And that's why I'm here. So that story really resonated with me, and I think this is just a snapshot of what happened. I mean, it was a power packed 60 minutes, and there's so much to think about and so much to reflect about, and it's something that I'm really looking forward to doing over the coming days and even after the conference. And then once the keynote was over, I went over to the expo, spent a few hours over there, and boy, was I in for a surprise. I didn't think of the expo so much. It was just like, I was just thinking of just going around and just having a sort of a bird's eye view of what's happening. But there is so much happening in the expo. And if you are going to attend the ATD conference, do not miss the expo. I would dedicate at least half a day, or probably even a little bit more, to the expo, because there are so many organizations. I think this year there are about 360, 370 booths, and there is so much happening in the L&D industry. There are so many companies trying to solve so many problems, and they have such unique and creative ideas that I mean, it'll be great to work with them, of course. And even if you're not really going to work with them, the kind of thought process that goes in creating those products and those services is amazing. And I think that really acts as a source for inspiration for generating your own ideas and try to solve problems for your clients. And I think in that way, it was absolutely brilliant. And of course, the expo for me was also a great opportunity to meet some of my clients who are here and reconnect with old friends. So I had a bunch of my former colleagues at the expo as well. So we got chatting, and it was an amazing experience. We got to reminisce. There were so many memories, and I really enjoyed spending time at the expo. And so the expo hall also had a spot for us to have a lunch. So lunch was pretty good, and but the thing was, it was very crowded, but I was still able to manage to find seats. And of course, I had a lot of interesting people on my table, and we exchanged cards, and it was a very good experience at the lunch as well. So once lunch was done, I moved to my first session of the day, which was on servant leadership by Ken and Scott Blanchard, and of course, a session that I was always looking forward to, and it absolutely didn't disappoint me. I mean, to really look at Ken over there talking after, I mean, he was in the booth in the morning, and I think he signed around 150 books. And after that, he comes to deliver his presentation. It was absolutely amazing. I mean, the kind of that really showed his genuine interest in improving people, and I think that's something that really resonated with me. And some of the topics that was discussed were about leadership being something that you don't do to people, but something that you do with people. So that's a very powerful statement that was made. And we were also talking about the importance of catching people doing things right. And of course, my favorite was love is the answer. What's the question? So that was a very powerful statement that resonated with me. And what really made this that much more engaging was the powerful stories that Scott and Ken brought to us, and sharing their genuine experiences. And it was more than a presentation, it felt more like a very frank conversation that I'm having with someone, and sharing their experiences. I think it was very powerful, and I was really taken by the kind of stories that were being shared, and the kind of ideas that were being presented. And Ken also mentioned that the opposite of trust is not mistrust, but the opposite of trust is actually control. So that, I mean, that evoked a round of applause from the audience, and that's so true as well. So I mean, in a work scenario, whether you're working as an individual contributor, or you're managing a team, the amount of control that you're going to have versus the amount of trust you're going to have on the team is going to really have an impact on how the team is going to stick with you. And he gave a lot of stories from his days at Ken Blanchard. And a couple of statements that were made on exemplary leaders was their ability to adapt and convert, and that their journey never ends. So all in all, it was an amazing session. And for me, a session like this post lunch was just the right energizer that I needed to continue with my day. And then I moved on to my next session on inclusive learning. This was hosted by Artisan e-learning, and inclusivity and accessibility are something that I'm very, very passionate about. And I was so happy to see a presentation on this topic, and it was very good as well. I mean, we were talking about inclusivity when it comes to sight, hearing, mobility, and cognitive disabilities. And we were also talking about how we have the ability to leverage technology to really address these accessibility challenges. And one of the key ideas that really got me thinking was, oftentimes when we design courses, we design courses keeping us in the hot seat. We think, okay, so how would I learn this? So when it comes to accessibility, I think it's very, very important that you think about learners with special requirements. And another very interesting statement that was shared, and it was discussed quite elaborately with the audience as well, was um, to leverage on learners' lived experience. So we were talking about a case study where we were supposed to design a course on CPR, and how would we design a course for CPR with learners with disabilities? Because one of the statements that was made was, because was in as instructional designers, as learning consultants, we don't really have the right to decide who gets to get better at their jobs. So our prerogative is to get everyone, to get all our learners better at their job. So we were discussing strategies on how we would really design learning experiences, keeping accessibility in mind. There were a couple of examples that were shared on screen as well. On There were a couple of storyline courses that we were discussing, and how we would do that. And we were also talking about the importance of using alt text, and I think that's something that I did. In fact, when I was designing my portfolio ahead of the ATD conference, I made sure that I had all my images have alt text. And I think to see that really being demonstrated at the conference as well, I felt so good that I am in the right direction, and I am thinking of accessibility. And I think as instructional designers, it is absolutely crucial for us to really think of including alt text. I mean, we will get pushback from clients in terms of, I mean, is it really necessary? I don't think I have people like this, but it's always important to have accessibility in mind, so that your learning experience that you're creating can be as inclusive as possible. And of course, what made the session even special was, of course, the interactivity and the kind of stories that the presenters shared from their own families in terms of the challenges that they faced when it came to accessibility. And I think it was all around a very powerful session, and I had a lot of takeaways. There were also a couple of resources that were shared for instructional designers and for consultants to go and download templates and worksheets that will really help us to focus on the accessibility aspects when it comes to creating, designing, and delivering learning programs. And after that, I had the Blanchard party to attend to. So that was the evening of parties. A lot of parties were happening. So I chose to attend the Blanchard party. Of course, I was invited. So I went, came back to my hotel, had a quick shower, changed, and went to the Blanchard party. It was, of course, an amazing experience. Met a lot of leaders, met some of the clients, met fellow instructional designers, and it was the kind of experiences that were shared, and we had such a wonderful conversation with some of the top leaders in the industry. And I think that gave me a lot to think about, a lot of insights, a lot of wisdom, in fact, that we shared. And I think I'm going to, I've got my notes here actually with some of the key points that I discussed, and some of the points that I wanted to reflect upon. I mean, of course, I've got a 30-hour journey back to India, so I've got a set of points that I wanted to reflect. And of course, I did stop by the ATD bookstore yesterday, bought a couple of books. So really looking forward to reading those books as well. So that is sort of a wrap on what happened in day two of the ATD conference. It's just getting better. So I'm really looking forward to day three, and I'll come back to you once that's done. So until then, take care and have a nice day.